posterity, for sharing with others, for yeah, just to be able to say I was there and this is what happened. So I am now recording. Thank you very much. And everyone's welcome. If you need to walk away, replenish your drink. You know, we're very super human scale here. And, you know, no apologies needed. Just do what you need to do. If you want to be mostly mute, or, you know, muting your mic, or taking the, you know, being off webcam. That's, you know, we're all adults here. And I'm hoping more people will show. You know, we have some late arrivals. Sometimes people feel that, you know, casual with this, and you know, I do welcome folks if they arrive a little bit after 8. Alejandra's going to be, or is, our featured reader, and I'm really excited to hear from your work. And don't feel obligated to read from the new book, Alejandra. If you have something like that you just wrote today, or something, you know, whatever you choose to read, your time is the time you feel how you like. And you know, there might be some space also for us to ask you questions afterwards, if you don't, you know, if you're open to that. So we can have a dialogue about your work. And of course, if you feel like you want to share work bilingually, Spanish and English, either or, that's your prerogative completely. So are we ready to hear Alejandra, or do we want a warm-up poem first, or what are you feeling, gente?
Tammy, maybe you can warm us up.
If I do, it's going to be something off the dome, because I don't have anything pulled up. Pulled up, yeah, on the computer. Yeah, let me think about that. Give me 30 seconds. Is that cool? Since you asked. I am trying to work on a manuscript, which is that's kind of a new and different thing for Tammy G. So I'm getting into the mindset of focusing on my work as a possible you know, for possible publication. So I think what I can do is go to a website. There's a journal, online journal titled About Place Journal, and I'm in the current issue. So I think I'll just read something from that. About Place Journal is the literary arts journal produced 2 times a year by the Black Earth Institute, which is based in Madison, Wisconsin. And the thematic title for the issue this month is Geographies of Justice. And there are 2 micro essays and 1 poem that were pulled from what I submitted. I think I submitted all 3, and they accepted all 3, which is very nice. And the piece that I want to share is a poem that I wrote, you know, maybe 3 years ago. And it's a poem that I've committed to giving away for free. So I've actually handed out hard copies, printed out copies of this poem to at least 300 people. I really strongly believe in that poem needing to be shared in paper form to folks that I see. And it's my flag poem, and it's titled Eulogy for a Flag and Other Misguided Sentiments. So aquí va. When you approach that standing pole in the distance, in a schoolyard, at the courthouse or palace of governors, don't you dare raise a flag rotted with bloodstains and horror, decay and despair, and you don't even ever come near with a flag, unless that piece of cloth, by virtue of the virtues it symbolizes, raises a face to the light, a child to his feet, a mother from her knees, declares peace in the street. But if your color guard makes me feel so insecure, my safety unsure, that I want to hide and not be seen, then wash it away. The tints are tainted, and we will sorrow for what swirls away in the rinse. And if your stars, emblems, and stripes seem hopelessly disarrayed by design, perhaps it's because the generals, fighters, and document signers forgot to include equal and all people and someday no war in the fabric and weave. The last thing I need is to see something waving that flips me off, deems me underclass, hanged by the neck. Better to keep such banners down low and folded, and save the parades for that spangled day when no hate is raining upon us. So do you see why I want to share that one? I want, I want a huge read along with that poem someday, like a room of 200 people and we're all reading that poem out loud. So thank you. Let's pivot now to our spotlight poet for today, and that's Alejandra Ramos Gomez. No biological relation, but maybe there is a biological relation somewhere down the family roots, of the tree. Alejandra, when you're ready to unmute, tell us as much as you want about yourself and that beautiful cat behind you, and just roll with it. We're here for you. Welcome her to the mic, Alejandra Ramos Gomez.
Gracias. So yeah, hi everyone, Alejandra Ale, my companion Maya. Born and raised in Juarez, Chihuahua, moved here 7 years ago. I am currently an educator. I've been a bilingual educator for the past 7 years. Writing since I was a little girl, because it was always my safe space. What I was trying to think. I also edit a Spanish column. We highlight people from the community, and it's kind of new, but it's been really nice to write. I really wanted to have like high quality like stories about our people and not just translations, and that was like very important to me. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about me. I'm getting blank. But well, this is my book. This is my first book, Imperfecta. And I wrote it during the pandemic. I actually started writing it last June after I applied to something that I thought that I wanted and I got rejected. And that's what made me want to start writing the book. And now I see back and I realize that there was a reason for that. And I'm glad that didn't happen, because that gave me time to really go ahead and do what I wanted to do for a long time. And it's a bilingual poetry book. It has poems, essays, dialogues, which is this part that I wrote based on Rosario Castellanos, who's one of my favorite poets ever. And she had this amazing segment, like in one of her books, where she would have dialogues with really like famous writers, but it was, always like Pablo Neruda, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I said, well, I want to do the same, but I want to do it with like my favorite female writers. And so those dialogues are with them, and some meditations. And today I'm going to be sharing some that are kind of short and some a bit longer, but I'll kind of go like in order of how the book goes. And the first part is about being Mexican, just how much that impacted my life and what I do and why I do it. And the first one is Mexican childhood. What's your favorite memory? A childhood in Mexico is often portrayed as papel picado en piñatas, but that wasn't it. Our memories were permeated by injustice and fear. We learned the word murder before we learned how to multiply. What's your favorite memory? Annual parties celebrating El Día del Niño, colorful balloons to hide injustice. Our memories as girls in a femicide town were defined by impotence and an ass resilience. I don't want to be resilient. I want to survive. I want to live. I want to thrive. And so, yeah, I write a lot about femicides because of the city that I grew up in. And sometimes people ask me, why do I write a lot about that? And I feel like I can't not write about that. It's just something that, my niece is there, my family is there, and it's something that really, really matters to me. And I feel like people should know more about it. And so this next piece talks more about just colorism and experience growing up being morena and not seeing myself portrayed in the media and everywhere around me. Soy morena. Te hablo a ti. Sí, a ti. A esa mujer morena que duda de sí misma más de lo que piensan. A esa mujer morena que creció viendo estereotipos de belleza inalcanzables. A esa mujer que se adapta para encajar. A esa mujer morena que es considerada exótica por su lenguaje o manera de existir. a esa mujer que nunca imaginó existir en las portadas de revista, a esa mujer morena que aguantó insultos por no molestar o incomodar. Te hablo a ti, sí, a ti, a esa mujer morena que ha cambiado, a esa mujer morena que hoy dice no más porque reconoce su valor, a esa mujer que irradia luz al amar su color. And then I continue a little bit more, still through my childhood. And all of my friends in Mexico, no one calls me Alejandra. All my friends call me Nacheli. And Nacheli is my indigenous name. My dad's family, they're Zapotecos from El Istmo. And when I got that name, I was around 5 years old. My mom added it to the notebooks because she went to the actual court, and they told her that she couldn't add an indigenous name to my name, that I had to do it when I turned 18. And then when I turned 18, it was when I was transitioning and I was going through all the immigration, and it was just too complicated to add it at that moment. And everyone already knew me as Nacheli, or Nash for short. And then when I moved here, I always thought that it was too hard for people to hear this whole story. And I just started saying Alejandra. And it wasn't until this last summer that I was in a writing group that I told them, well, actually everyone calls me Nacheli. And they started calling me that. And it's been nice. I think I realized how important, how good it makes me feel. And it just taps into a more personal side of me. So I've been introducing myself more as Nacheli lately, and Nacheli or Nash. And this is a poem about Nacheli. Duré la mayor parte de mi vida avergonzándome de mi nombre, acortando su significado para encajar en espacios que no aceptaban mi piel y apariencia. Mi nombre indígena significa te amo. Sin embargo, duré toda una vida sin amarme a mí misma, disfrazando mi inseguridad de ropa de marca y viajes constantes, disfrazando mis miedos de amores fallidos y amistades superficiales. Nacheli significa te amo. Hoy me amo tal y como soy. Morena, sencilla, emocional, Nacheli.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do you spell that, Nacheli?
Yes, let me type it in the chat.
I could guess, but I'd rather not. I don't want to offend you. So.
No problem. It's like that.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Nacheli. What is it? How does it translate?
It means I love you. It means te amo.
Oh. In Zapotec.
Mhm.
I love you. Oh, so your partner says your name a lot, I bet.
Yes. Yeah, so it's I think it's a big part of me, but I didn't realize when I moved here, I didn't realize how many things I changed to assimilate. And it isn't until now that I look back at it, and but I guess we learn from that, and that helps my students hopefully learn from those experiences. And I always tell them how important their names are, and teaching people how to actually say their names and not shorting them or changing them. So I hope that helps. Okay, and let me read something also in English. Okay, and then this is a difficult one, but I'll read it. The second part of the book talks more about being a woman, and the good and also the difficult parts of being a woman. And this specific poem is about femicides and about just my reality growing up and seeing that as being normal. And I also never realized how much it affected me until now. I talked about it with my therapist, and I realized that certain things that I knew or saw were not, they really did affect me in a lot of ways. And now some situations trigger it now many years later. So this is a way to kind of heal from that and raise awareness, and hopefully that doesn't happen to future generations. And this is Mujeres Olvidadas. Alma Chavira Farel, 13 years old, murdered in 1992. Daisy Jasmine Garcia Hernandez, 15 years old, murdered in 2017. Guadalupe Brenda Vizcarra, 26 years old, murdered in 2019. Susi Salais, 25 years old, murdered in 2020. These are the names of 4 women murdered in the state of Chihuahua, Mexico. There have been close to 2,000 women murdered in the past 25 years in my hometown. Vanessa Guillen, 20 years old, murdered in 2020. I left my country to run away from violence, but our nightmare does not end at the border. Mujeres olvidadas. 2 a.m. and in between dreams, I hear my mother calling my sister in despair. A knot in my stomach invades me with doubt whether my sister is safe or not, whether my sister is alive or not. That was my reality for a long time. I grew up thinking that as a woman, being murdered was a possibility and that it was my duty to avoid it. Missing young women destroy families. Jóvenes desaparecidas, familias destruidas. ¿Cómo nos atrevimos a culparlas? How did we dare blame them? Men and women giving excuses for emotional and sexual abuse. What have we become? Blaming women for calling attention to what they wear as if we could control your mind. We're in a desert of sexual education. We lack clarity. Otra mañana, otra mujer asesinada. Another morning, another murder woman. Recuerdos de infancia de violencia e impunidad, recuerdos de miedo y frustración, childhood memories of violence and impunity, memories of fear and frustration. Every morning I woke up to the news of a femicide. Standard features, brown skin, short height, dark hair. It could have been me. One more pink cross, it became the normal for us. My value as a woman was reduced to the fear of being murdered. I felt that I had to leave. And now I am caught between wanting to be with my family or surviving, because in our reality, women who speak up are considered a threat. Women are supposed to listen. Vanessa Guillén, nunca olvidaremos tu nombre. Una mujer más, otra que se nos va de las manos. We will never forget your name. Times have changed, but minds remain the same. It is more complicated than I thought. What have we become? Giving excuses for people committing abuse and justifying degraded actions by men who are supposed to be our leaders. Solo una de cada 10 mujeres denuncia el abuso. No porque no queramos, sino porque sabemos que nadie nos escuchará. Only 1 in 10 women report the abuse. Not because we don't want to, but because we know if we do, most of the time, no one will truly listen. Intersectionality is our enemy. Temen de hablar de sexo seguro y menstruación, pero no temen tocarnos. They fear to talk about safe sex and menstruation, but they're not afraid to touch us. ¿Y cómo se acaba esto? I'm still searching for the solution. Today, my weapons are my mind and my voice. My most powerful weapon has become to turn the word me into us, my voice into our voice. Alma, Daisy Jazmín, Guadalupe, Susi, Vanessa Guillén, our voice.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that's hard. I like felt the intensity of that. You know, and reading it like fast like that heightens the intensity of it. So I think it's good for it to build tension in the listener, because that's how we're gonna start feeling the poem. We feel it first in our bodies and then hopefully in our minds and hearts. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because I was just talking to some people this week on kind of like a femicide campaign, and everyone was talking about statistics, and thank you so much. Everyone was talking about statistics and how do we show this and with the numbers, and I told them, well, but these are not only statistics, this is a reality. And I feel like when we just get lost in numbers, it really doesn't connect with people, and I don't think that wakes people up. It's good, you know, but not everyone will stay and read through that. And I think something like that, connecting through emotions, can have a bigger impact. And this next part of the book is a big part of it, and kind of related to May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health and anxiety and depression was a big part of my life since I can remember, honestly, ever since I was a young girl. I'm a gifted and talented teacher right now, and now that I see my students, I realize that that's how I was, but we never had those programs. For me, it was only like, go and help someone else or do more work, and I think that it also, a lot of the emotional side, maybe teachers or people didn't know, even my family didn't know how to understand that and how to support me. And so this kind of talks about, this is a letter to depression, and just trying to raise more awareness on how I think we should talk more about this and support each other through this process. Una carta a la depresión. Estimada compañera de todos los días, no te escribo para reprocharte nada, porque las dos sabemos que nos conviene estar unidas. Nos conocemos desde hace mucho tiempo. Y aunque hay tiempos que no, en los que no me caes bien, te debo confesar que te confundo con mi eterna archienemiga. Duré casi toda la vida escondiéndote, pero se volvió demasiado agotador. No pude esconder nuestras costumbres de dormir, llorar y pensar de más. No le cuento a todos de nuestra amistad porque no nos entenderían, pero creo que es sano hacerlo. A veces hablo de nosotros tal sátira, creo que el reírme de eso me hace sentir más fuerte, o por lo menos pretendo serlo. Si vamos a vivir juntas, vamos a vivir bien. ¿Qué te parece si nos escuchamos un poquito más? De intercambio te pido que poco a poco dejemos de pensar en más. Yo prometo verte más como amiga y ver lo bueno que hay en ti. Eres fuente de inspiración, de eso no hay duda. Espero que hablemos pronto. La verdad que no, pero solo lo incluyo por mera formalidad. Un abrazo, tu amiga de toda la vida.
So it's not a breakup letter. It's a let's figure out how to live with each other.
Yes, yes, yes.
Good.
Yes, because I think it's, you know, it's a part of us, and of course there's things that I've I've noticed throughout time and therapy and you know, and art, that a lot of things were not healthy for me, and when I take that away, it really helps. But I know that depression in a way is kind of a part of who I am in the like on the artistic side, and it makes me understand things in a different way. And this next one is also about this. It's called Latina Realidad, and it's just kind of it's kind of like telling the story of me talking to my mom about these issues, and her finally being willing to listen. So this is Latina Realidad. Soy Latina. I hold my mother's hand as a sign of strength and support, and she cried as she finally understood. Years and years of ups and downs, sadness, ambitions, obsessions, and internal conversations that would never finalize. I spent too many years trying to convince the inner Nacheli that we would make it, that the suicidal thoughts would fade away. Rodeada de un mundo de personas, me sentí más sola que nunca. Being on the edge became the norm, became the regular me. Therapy, poetry, dance, art, I did as much as I could just to keep myself alive. One day, it was simply not enough. I imagined a life alone, apart from the ones I love. I felt toxic, misunderstood, obsessive. Mi alma estaba fuera de control. Pachamama, ven a salvarme. Mother Earth is with me everywhere I go. The plain red felt eternal because it was my last resource. Upon my arrival, my family consoled my soul. Soy mexicana y mi familia no quería ver la realidad. I begged for help. My tears screamed desperation. Eso se te va a pasar. Ponte a pensar en algo más. But mother, that is the real problem. My mind is eternally busy. How do I make it stop? Days and days passed, blood tests, doctors, more tests. I was tested physically to uncover issues emotionally. Back in the US, and I still felt the same. One call changed my life. The problem is real, and it is in my brain. A diagnosis and explanations that healed a lifetime of suffering and isolation. My breath will never be the same. Mi aliento fluye. My breath flows. My breath lifts. My breath changes. Mi aliento es cambiante. I hold my mother's hand to heal my sadness and thank her for leaving cultural prejudice behind. Soy latina, bipolar y finalmente feliz.
Very nice. Gracias.
Gracias. And do I have time for one more, or do you want me to stop? Yes.
No, 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 I don't want you to stop. Hey, they're going so quickly in my mind that it feels I'm not even aware of how time's passing. 2 or 3 more is fine.
Okay.
Whatever feels good.
Yes. And because I'm going back. At first, I was doing in order, but now I'm like, no, that's let me go. This one is a little bit about my experience as a teacher. I was just mentioning to Tammy before, you know, before everything started, that this is my last year in the classroom. I'm leaving after 7 years, and it's been a really, really difficult decision, but I think it's also a good decision for my mental and my physical health. So these are some poems about that. And this is, you are a superhero. I didn't sign up to be a superhero. I signed up to be an educator. I lead by example. I don't want children to see me not prioritizing my health. I didn't sign up to be a superhero. I signed up to be a professional. I listen to my students. I know a test doesn't do justice to their knowledge. I didn't sign up to be a superhero. I signed up to inspire others. I teach them to think, to question what is established, and create their own paths. And good. And I'll read, so I'm going to read one of the dialogues, and I'll read one of the short meditations. And this dialogue, let me see. Do you all prefer English or Spanish, or is fine? Either or. Okay.
Well, I think it's up to the, I mean, I can understand both. I don't know, Jeffrey and Richard might have, I don't want to speak for you guys, but um,
I don't understand
I
enough of the Spanish, I should say. So, but
I
that's
can
also
do
when
like,
you're doing, yeah, that'd be great.
yeah, I can do like, they're like really short, so I can do one in Spanish and one in English, and it's actually really, it goes really well hand in hand, because one of the dialogues is with Remedios Varo and one is with Leonora Carrington, and they were like best friends. So it goes along pretty well.
and they were both avant-garde painters or visual artists in Mexico, and they're considered oh gosh, surrealists. And so they were, you know, very well known in the surrealist movement worldwide. They just happened to be based in Mexico. And their names again are Remedios Varos, and then the other is Carrington.
Leonora Carrington, yes.
Leonora.
Leonora,
Yeah.
yes. And I love them. I love their art. And I think it really speaks to me. And Remedios Varo wrote like her own journal, and it was just beautiful to read it. It really, that was one of the things that I did when I was writing the book. I only read books by women, and I think it really helped me, because growing up, most of the books that I read and the literature that I read were always men, and I never realized how important it is to read women who I can identify with. So this is Remedios Varo.
Do you mind if I share the screen? Because I just Googled their Remedios Varo, and it might be nice to look at some of their paintings.
Yes.
Yeah, right there.
Yes.
Can you see that?
Yes, she's amazing. Remedios Varo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So this, and some of the paintings are so great. I love them. The one next to it, with the owl, she used to paint a lot with reality and things that I don't think we see or allow our minds to see. So it was really interesting to read her diary too. And this is a quote by Remedios, and it says, me cuesta mucho comprender la importancia que parece tener para ti el reconocimiento de tu talento. And my answer, la verdad que a mí también me cuesta comprender los Remedios. Muchas veces he intentado convencerme a mí misma que no es importante, pero me gana la mente. Te cuento que tengo una mente testaruda y berrinchuda, una mente que se entristece en un segundo y encuentra felicidad a la vuelta del minuto. And this next one is really short, just short dialogue with Leonora Carrington, and her quote is, sentimentality is a form of fatigue. It feels impossible not to be a sentimental. Maybe this is why I'm exhausted. A year of tornadoes, pandemics, solitude, and depression. Do you think they do this on purpose, Leonora? They try to exhaust us through pain and offenses. In these times, healing our fatigue is an act of resistance. Rest, descansa. Yes. So yes, those are my dialogues. And just to close, I think I'll read. This is a short meditation, but I do mindfulness, and I do like science-based mindfulness. But this is not that. I just wanted to write some poems that are more about, I think mindfulness for me is a lot about connecting to Mother Earth and connecting to the moon, especially, and to the trees. So these meditations are more towards that. And this is Luna Llena. Sal y respira profundo. Convierte en luna, comparte ciclos, cambios y feminidad. Inhala aceptación y exhala limitaciones. No temas decir tus intenciones en voz alta. Observa la luna durante 30 segundos. 15 segundos para agradecerle, 15 segundos para admirar su belleza. Eres tan bella como la luna. Thank you so much. And that was inspired a little bit also by Yoko Ono, that I really love her poems when she writes a lot of poems that are like instructions. And I really like that. So I try to incorporate a little bit of that.
That's amazing. I had moved back to Fort Worth, and that was hard for me to adjust to being back in this kind of environment where it's so conservative. And so a dance company had asked me to perform with them in downtown Fort Worth on a Saturday. And the women, the dancers did, movement, and they said, do whatever you want. And I had an idea to do something where I dressed like Yoko Ono because I have long hair and I had the big, the sunglasses, and I had a megaphone, and I had put like a bedspread and a pillow on the concrete, and on the pillow, what is it called? Almohada, the pillowcase. I put in bed like Ono, something like that. In bed like Ono, and I invited people to come lay down with me. Like, John Lennon's gone, so I had to find somebody just to lay for a moment, But I also had a little cigar box with tiny little strips of papeles with instruction poems on them that I wrote. And so I was walking around, part of the time I was in the bed on the concrete bed. And then the part of the time I was walking up to people and say, would you like a poem? Would you like an instruction poem? And this was 1999 or 2000 in Fort Worth. And people, okay, I'm going to reenact the way that people looked at me when I approached them with my cigar box of poems. No, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's all right. No, it's okay. It's okay. No, thanks. No. And they were so scared of art. And I remember one, I guess she was esposa. She was with a male, and maybe they were married. And I'm like, hey, would you like a poem? And he kind of took one, like, okay, lady. And then I said, would you like one? She's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. He has one. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm like, oh my God, these people are freaking out about public art. And like they have, like, this should be a moment where they're like, oh, this is cool. This is different, which is how I would respond. And probably all of us in this room would say, when it would be like, wow, that's cool. Thanks. Cool. Lady, that's different, but not the like, oh, and it was, I'm like, welcome back to Texas. But those, what is it? She's one of her instruction poems was make a circle in the air and then leave it there. They're very surrealist. So now I know that you have a mind of a surrealist también.
I like it. Yes.
Yeah. Because there's so much permission in like our approach to reality, how we interpret reality, coexist with reality, capital R. I don't know. Do you guys have any folks here have an impression about surrealism and how that changes your artwork, your expression, dancing or writing? Jeffrey is a dancer, movement artist, and of course Richard and Lorena are poetas. ¿Quieren decir algo?
I love surrealism myself, but actually a lot of kinds of art, and it's definitely had an influence on how I see things and think. I mean, and it's not just the surrealists, and, it is international. But the Dada people also, who are connected in some ways to the surrealists, had a lot of stuff on me. And Yoko Ono's book too, which I think got stolen, but I did have it for a number of years. And I do write instruction poems sometimes, or sometimes I just instruct people to do things. I'm joking. I'm probably joking. I used to do performances where I would ask audiences to do things, though, and it's kind of amazing if you do it right, or figure out if it's the right audience. Like you were scaring them, Tammy.
I wasn't trying. That wasn't the point. So it was very disappointing. Imagine if I'd been like a 7-year-old girl saying, "You want to buy Girl Scout cookies?" Now that's socially acceptable. That's a platform that people recognize. And of course, it ties into capitalism and consumerism, and oh, it's a transactional interaction I'm having with a little child. But if that same child the next day shows up in a costume and is reciting something in, Arabic and Spanish and English, the adult audience, like, what do I do? I don't know. What is the script for me?
Mm-hmm.
What am I, how do, people, they don't want to, a lot of people don't want to engage with one another without a script. They want that role scripted for them. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like going home and crying in my Yoko Ono pillow, because it's like, oh my God, we can be off script. And it's so amazing. Remember when we used to play like children and nothing was
No.
script? We were making it up as we went along.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's very true. You
A,
can't.
a,
It's
a
hard.
year and a half ago, I was in Washington, D.C. with the Dance Exchange, and we went to the Hirshhorn Museum of Modern Art, and we went around with the docent who gave us the docent explanation of the works of art that we were looking at. And we had been assigned beforehand. Some of us looked at the gestures being used by the docent as they described this piece of art. And some of us listened to the words that the docent used to describe the piece of art. And some of us were just looking at the piece of art. And we each then came together and came up with gestures and movements that went with the words, and just expressions of what the meaning of that artwork was to us. And right on the spot, we combined them all into a movement, flow, dance, and performed it right there in front of the piece of art. And all the other people who were walking around the museum watched us, rapt with our performance, and applauded at the end. And we did that then we moved on to another piece of art and did the same thing. And it's the surrealist art, or touches in more to the, the mythical to me, and the magical. But it's the same sort of idea that you can come up with movements that express how the art moves you. And it doesn't matter what the art form is, visual art, poetry, which is why I'm here.
Yeah, you may be familiar with the term ekphrastic. Ekphrastic poetry is poetry written specifically to comment on, not so much interpret, but just to comment on. It's almost like it could be like an emotional response to a visual art piece. And those can be really exciting to read. And it's not supposed to be a substitute for the visual piece. It's just kind of channeling your emotional response to the work. So it sounds like y'all did a visceral movement.
Ekphrastic
Yeah,
dance.
ekphrastic. Ecstatic ekphrastic.
Dance. Yeah. I do ekphrastics to music, like to live music with usually without words. And I'm putting together a book of them. Well, slowly.
And they don't consist of words? Did you say they don't consist of words?
No, it's for, I tend to write them to pieces to live music, like maybe jazz. Doesn't have to be jazz, but it does not have lyrics. so I'm letting words come out of me instead. That's all. I
Oh
have
yeah,
an
yeah.
interesting story, but I actually don't want to monopolize. So I want to see if anybody else has a comment on that. I have one other brief story that I think would be interesting to hear.
I'd love to hear it, and I want to
Oh,
say that I love writing to jazz music. And
oh man.
there used to be a band in Fort Worth that played in the 80s, 1980s in Fort Worth at you might remember this place, Jeffrey, the TCU place, the Hop. Yeah, the band would come in and it would be free, no cover, and I'd go in with my, believe it or not, I used to have an electronic typewriter that I don't I don't remember if I had to plug it in or not. I guess I did. And I would take that heavy thing in and sit in a booth and have paper. So it's really typing for real. And I would just, with the low lights and the jazz and a beer, just like whatever came to my mind, I would type it as I was listening. And I wasn't even looking at the paper because I didn't need to confirm what I typed. I didn't need to worry about, I didn't want to worry about editing, copy editing. It was just like freestyle, like, blah, 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 and I was like jamming to the music. And then I take the papeles, everything home and look at, wow, look, this is like a imprint of what I was feeling while I heard that jazz. I love doing that. Like for me, it's a mental freeing exercise. And I used to do that for the East Babylon Symphony in Austin, all those cool bands that we knew back in the 90s. Oh, you
One of the
never know
last,
what's going to come out. Like you don't have to have a subject or a thema in
no,
mind, and just like stuff comes up, and you're like, wow.
yep. One of the
I want
last,
to do an event in real life. I'll have a jazz band, and only writers can come in, and you have to bring your own typewriter or computer or paper.
one of the
Love
last
it.
live music events I went to before the pandemic was one of my favorite. I don't even know how you classify them, but I think of them as heavy jazz. Is the Brown Fellinis? Does anybody? Which, by the way, connects a little bit with surrealism right there. But does anybody happen to know the Brown Fellinis? That band. Brown is spelled Braun. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure why, but anyway, they're like a. I think of them as younger, but a couple of them came out of the Beatniks in the 90s, 80s and 90s. So anyway, and I did a lot of writing to them. They actually make me levitate. So I recommend looking up the Brown Fellinis and listening to them online if you can.
Are
But
they in Oakland?
they're in the East Bay area, but they do travel around. They're fairly well known in maybe progressive jazz circles, maybe. I'm not quite sure, and they're progressive, but they're great.
Braun? I'm
Pretty
typing it.
sure it's,
BR.
I'm pretty, I think so, unless it's Broun. I just know that it doesn't, has the U, not the W. Might be
That's enough
BRO.
to
Yeah.
Google. Yeah.
So
I
if I
want to
tell a brief
levitate.
story, I have a question. I have a question for Alejandra. So I taught English, like writing, literature writing and all that kind of stuff at an art school. So I taught artists about language, and that was at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, which is art and design college. So I was teaching undergraduates who were very visual and really knew the art and really were not word oriented. But so one of their assignments for me um, from me was that everyone during the course of the semester had to go to a poetry reading in Brooklyn or Manhattan. And I actually helped, like I had a list of readings they could sign up for and stuff like that. And then they had to write 2 pages only on what the experience was like, and also what they think one of the poets was writing about, whether it was clear or not clear. It didn't matter. and and their reaction to it was terror a lot of the time. Some of them were like, "Oh, cool," but they were like, "Oh my God," that was like so out of their element, And it was kind of the opposite. It's like the visual people were terrified of the word people. but they mostly ended up really enjoying it. That I do recall one fashion student, because they had a fashion department there, who was particularly annoyed by the assignment, talked for almost the entire 2 pages about the socks that the poet was wearing and how they were really not appropriate to be wearing. I think the poet was wearing white socks with black shoes, and it was like a giant mistake. That's all. I thought the kid was going to have a breakdown, but they also had to speak it in front of. They just read it out loud to the class, so it was reflective. Like, I wanted them to write about how the poets were communicating, and then stand up and communicate with words themselves, because you kind of have to in any profession, So, Lorena, not Lorena, Alejandro, I was trying to remember. I don't think you said what grade levels do you teach?
Right now, this year, I was teaching. Well, it's a long title, same stress than any other title of teacher. Gracias, amor. I'm a dual language gifted and talented kinder and first grade teacher. So it's a pilot program. Well, we started it 3 years ago. I was part of the pilot, and it's the kind of like the new thing of it is that it is dual language. So it is 50-50. So I only teach in Spanish, all content areas. And all the students are labeled gifted and talented. So instead of being the usual pull-up program, they're together all day, every day.
Awesome. That is, oh, wow. The reason I wanted to ask is, I taught college level for like 8 or 9 years, but I have friends who taught high school and grade school lower levels, which I don't think I could do. And I always tell them, that they are actually superheroes, and that they really should have a secret superhero name and an outfit. And so I just wanted to put that to you, because I think you have to be a superhero. It's funny you said, I'm not a superhero, I'm an educator. And I know why, but I was like, no, you are. If you're an educator, you are a superhero. I don't know what your secret name is, but.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. I think mainly I wrote that poem because of this school year, because the reason why I love early childhood, and it's interesting that you were talking about the visual part, because I am terrified of painting and drawing. Mm-hmm. I am so bad at it. And I was a dancer since I was very like 4, back home. And then when I moved here, I kind of stopped and then did some theater, always like musical theater. So for me, moving and dancing and expressing is like, but more in the physical part. And with the little ones, I have so much fun. Like, we would just act and dance, and I have my puppets, and I love all of that. And then, so this year was so different because they had to be sitting in their place. They couldn't move. We had like dividers. And I think that really affected, because I couldn't do all of those fun things that I would usually do. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what made me kind of write that poem, because people would say, oh, you're a superhero. And then they would send us to school when COVID was, really bad. And so it was just kind of, some things didn't make sense. But we made it, we made it, and we're all getting through it all together, the kids.
Glad. I know that feeling a little bit. This is almost the only regular Zoom reading that I attend, and I have been coming since November. I don't know, it's a kickback and relax, but also, take in people time. But all the like regular readings, I used to go to a lot of readings. I ran a couple series, stuff like that till last year. And I don't like them, and I don't know why, but it's kind of the same thing of feeling like I can only stand here, because I'm kind of, I jump around when I perform sometimes, and, I'm real physical, but it's more about being in the presence of people and interacting in that way, rather than like you were talking about the students having the shields and, not being able to move around so much. And that's hard. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I'm just rambling. And
I'm enjoying looking at your backdrop. Your kitchen is just very intriguing. You've got a lot of really great visuals behind you. I want to tell you that last night I finished my night by going to this thing. I didn't know the term puppetry slam. There was an event that happened yesterday, I think, and it was a puppet slam. And I'm like, oh my God, this is another world that happens on the internet that I don't know anything about. So you've heard about poetry slams, right? We know, spoken word slams, poetry slams. So there's a community of folks that have puppet slams, and they each bring their own puppet game. And so I tuned in kind of late. They'd already done the performance on the live stream, but they were at the part where they were asking each other, like, how did you do that? And that trick with the light, how did you? And they were showing all their magic tricks. And so I got to see, there's a thing called a crank, because they use a crank to crank the background scenes. They're kind of scrolling back and forth, and then some showed the little dangly puppets. They made hand puppets. There was a guy who does kind of like an Oscar from Sesame Street character. I mean, it was kind of similar to that character. He's very grouchy. And then, I mean, just gorgeous things. Shadow puppetry. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in this world. I love it. And these people, they were so respectful, like poets can be, where we're listening to each other, asking very, thoughtful questions about our work. So they were doing it in about the puppet world. And I just like, oh my God, whole new vocabulary. And I want to play with them too, because I do plan to stay online a lot, here in the next 6 months, because I don't want to be out and about. And I do like saving money, staying inside and not, especially in the summer when I take like 3 showers a day, because I bike. And by the time the night's finished, I've had like 3 showers, because, sweating and me, I don't like it. It happens, but you just want to feel fresh too. So my ramble is about like entering different worlds, like the poetry world, the visual world, movement, like what Jeffrey, what you bring as a modern dancer and purveyor of that type of art. And I think they all inform each other. Like the jazz informs me about certain ways of expression. So Eli, if you want to jump in on this, I see you in the window, so I know you're zooming with us. How you doing? And you want to share a little bit about your visual process this month?
Also, the artwork mix for this. Yeah, Mary. Oh, hey, yeah, you know what I was thinking about doing? The Aralitas during the revolution, the Mexican Revolution. I was thinking of doing the Virgin Mary, but with like, because I've been watching the Mayans MC, and they have this one statue. They come and they kiss it on the forehead, and they honor it. But I was thinking about doing my Tia Mary as the Virgin Mary, but with the bullets going across her chest and representing the women who served during the revolution. So, I'm going to be working on that piece this summer. It's going to, I think, kind of just represent the Chicanas, who actually still fight for equality. It's a sketch. Yeah, it's something like that. Something like that. But, you have the American flag and then the Mexican flag, because
oh wow,
the Mexican American women are still, a lot of them don't get paid equality. They don't get respect. They don't get the fair share. They don't get the handshake that maybe some other women get. I don't know. I think it's just a empowering kind of picture for women. But I was thinking right now, did anybody see the live stream of the Caramilla Theater's Ursula?
I have not seen it yet. I know about it. And I love the work that Frida does. So did you see it?
Yeah, it was a really deep monologue. Man, it was powerful. Yeah, it was very powerful. She represents, I think, the little ones who were incarcerated or just kind of detained for the undocumented children, in the U.S. Pretty powerful. I saw it the other day.
She also uses puppets. I think she
Yeah,
uses
it was
different visual modalities.
yeah. Yeah, it hit the spot. It's like, yeah, she was singing, dancing, using the puppets. She was communicating with puppets. That was her like her alter ego, or mother and father. Or like I know she identified the puppets as some symbol of humanity. Pretty powerful. I would like to see it again. I only saw like the last hour of it. I caught the last hour, but I think it was like an hour and a half long.
Is it gonna show again? Because I missed it this weekend. Do you know?
Don't know.
I I'll look it up on Karamia's Facebook page. Yeah, I know they got a really great a connection to a like a new sponsor to take it to another level. So hopefully it'll be shown, several more times. That's exciting. Yeah. That's very brave of her to do, to
Yeah,
do alone, as a solo work.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I can't wait to see your new painting. And I love the nopales all around framing the Virgen. I really love nopal used that way. Really love that.
Yeah, so I, being an atheist, and I always kind of reflect back on Catholicism and religion, and because we were raised with that tradition and those beliefs, I always have to kind of go back and say, hey, you know what? Thank you for putting that in my mind and kind of showing me that this is your hope, your esperanza is someone who taught you of maybe tradition, and but you don't practice it today. That's kind of me. I don't practice any of those things that they taught me. I'm making my own path, but I always reflect on what I was taught. And I think dang
Most
call.
of my friends, many of my friends, I should say, are recovering Catholics like me, and there's something special about those people because it's like something like a blanquillo, an egg. When you dip it in the dye and you take it out of the water, it's no longer in that water. It's no longer, you know, affected by that water, but it always has an imprint. A little of the dye stays on. And I think with this a personal comment about these friends who are also, they don't go to church anymore, but they were raised Catholic or went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school for 9 years, the first 9 years of my life, and I'm happy for that experience, that immersion. I'm very happy for that immersion, and maybe it kind of protected me from other societal elements, especially in the city, that might have been too harsh for my little chicanita mentality. So maybe I'd be more wounded if I hadn't. I mean, I got wounded in a different way, going to a private school that with people who, from with little kids whose families had money, so that wounded me in a different way around class. But I'm happy for that immersion, because I think it gave me a kind of an ethical foundation that's been useful. I've never been to jail. So look at that. It kept me from going to jail.
So I one of the things that I do when I do artwork, I hope I don't offend anyone's beliefs, because I am insensitive about certain things, and then when I put it out there, I feel like, oh man, I hope I'm not offending someone who is religiously inclined, or is drilled with this heartfelt desire of hope. I don't want to like deter any of that when I put things up like the Virgin Mary, or a picture of Christ, or
I mean, I think there's always going to be some people who are anyway. And I don't know if you were here earlier. We were talking about, what was it exactly, Tammy? Stepping into being able to experience a very different world, stepping into different worlds, but also you were trying to hand out poems to people on the street, and it was scaring them, And the thing is, I mean, they're always that kind of art, and I don't know your art, say, but Eli, but it can be so inspiring in so many ways, and those symbols like the mother symbol and Guadalupe symbol, but also there's just a lot of different things going on with that are invaluable. The mother symbol is such a powerful symbol. So it's only people who are stuck in their a small way of thinking, but a lot of people, and I think a lot of Catholics too. I also was raised Catholic, and I'm also not Catholic, or even, I don't know, maybe I'm post-pagan or something. I don't know what I am. But I think a lot of Catholics, don't get freaked out and stuff like that too. They kind of understand where you're coming from and where, anyway, I just wanted to comment. I don't think it's anything to be afraid of. You can't be afraid of offending, a small percentage of people. If you want to do something, put something out there.
Right on. Thank you.
I agree. I want to say that I feel very strongly that this kind of conversation, Eli, like you're putting your trepidation, it's a thoughtful consideration to already be allowing for the possibility that somebody might have a disagreement about it. I think that's an important step as an artist, any kind of artist, that you're already thinking through, like, this may not be well received by all people, but I'm going to continue to do it because it's personal, this is an expression I personally feel committed to doing. But also take some time to prepare some words, some language that you can use when those people will approach you. Maybe they'll be feeling like, oh, this is an outrage, sacrilegious. If you're Catholic, you should be excommunicated, whatever they might say. For you to have a grounded, statement like, okay, let me share if you want to hear me. This is what my approach was. And that, I think you're already starting to formulate those responses by having this conversation today. So I think that's one way of answering your question, is just start preparing mentally for how you'll, respond to those disagreeers. But never stop doing the work. Never.
That helps.
Yeah, do you know the work of Alma Lopez? I think her name is Alma Lopez, and she does all the Vírgenes. Like, one is a superhero, speaking of superheroes, and then there's one, she's like the I don't know, she's done like a bunch of them. Well, some of her Vírgenes were in a museum in Santa Fe, and there was such controversy. Like, people were demanding that the exhibit be closed, It was, and Alma Lopez, she's also from the LA area or California area, and her work is iconic. But yeah, Santa Fe didn't care. the Catholics of Santa Fe didn't care. They're like, no, we don't want you doing this to our Virgen. They were very, so.
I think I might have seen some of her stuff, but
Alma Lopez.
I admire women or men who do that. I really do, because I think it's the time, and this is the age of actually speaking up against sometimes the hierarchy of religion or empowerment that it has been taken away from us.
Nice.
Each individual's strength. Oh yes, I have seen this.
So like this piece here, oh my God, where she's, kind of nude and with the flowers, part of Santa Fe wasn't ready for that,
Well, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful work. Yeah.
I keep thinking out. I'm going to shut up for a second. I'm looking for something.
I want to ask you, Alejandra, do you have a closing piece, or do you have a closing statement? I know I've really loved how this has unfolded, with you being the focal point, your work being the focal point, but it's kind of hatched all these different conversations and discourses that, inspired by the themes and the things you spoke about. And yeah, do you want to kind of give us some closure, or, move in that direction of closure for your segment?
Yes. Well, first of all, yeah, I agree. I think it's been really nice. It's been really natural to share. Feel really comfortable, and I think it made me think a lot. I think when we were talking about the surreal, because for me, I think surreal art in a way is stepping out of the box and and I think that even connects to like being Catholic, and my family, same thing. You know, Juarez is like most Mexican families, Catholic, but not really just Catholic. We would go to church and Easter, take photos, and leave early. That type. that was like my mom's practice. But I think in a way there were a lot of little things, right? And also from patriarchy that I knew things that were correct, things that weren't supposed to be. And I think now me stepping away from the classroom, writing this and everything, and that's why it's called Imperfecta, because it's really coming to terms with being perfectly imperfect and being okay with it. And I always say I'm a recovering perfectionist because my whole life, I always thought that that's how I was, but in a way it was me trying to prove myself. And then when I moved to the US, I think in a way it was me trying to prove that I could achieve the American dream and work, and not take care of myself. So Imperfecta is a way of stepping away from that box, taking care of myself, prioritizing my health, my art, and trying to break away from all those chains, you know, from generations and from the patriarchy. So thanks so much for listening to my work.
Can you put how to get the book on in the chat?
Those were the words I was just going to say. Thank you, Richard. Yes.
I mean, yeah. And I also, you know, I just want to say your list of names, the women's names, was so powerful. I could have listened to a list of names. I'm not saying that I would like to, but, you know, that it would be, but, you know, that could have gone for half an hour. And I think I would have been on the floor, but that was such a powerful part of your reading. You know, because everyone you know, and I know there's a very, very long list, you know, so.
Thank you so much. Yeah, they definitely impacted a lot of my work, and it just made me think a lot about how literature, you know, I studied in Mexico until high school. I didn't come, I went to El Paso for college, but I would still go back all the time. And my experience with literature back home, it was always like men, and my dad is a writer, but even then, now that my dad kind of edited some of my Spanish work, and he, you know, he has that like this is correct, and the Real Academia Española says that this, and like you shouldn't use Latin X and that. So it's been interesting. I think it was really important for me to read that and to read women who are trying to disrupt that and know that it is okay to do things differently.
Yeah, no.
I would like to share really quickly the screen for this website, Nacheli, where your book was listed as one of the 7 Latinx poetry books to add to your collection, which is a really honor. You know, it's a nice honor to have been distinguished that way. So we'll look at that website real fast. Aquí, there it is. 7 Latinx poetry books to add to your collection, and they're Nacheli's book is aquí, Imperfecta. And what they wrote, Meditations on Being a Woman, Migrant, and a Latina, Alejandra perfectly captures what it means to live in between 2 cultures and the struggles of making peace with your identity and your lived experiences. Very cool. How do you feel about that? How are you feeling about these accolades coming about because of the new book? How's that feel?
I think that the most beautiful ones have been people that I don't know at all that have reached out to me. I had this woman send me an email last week saying that she found the book in LA because the publisher Alegría, they're in LA, and we are. It's been really nice. It's a group of women. Most of us are Latinas, and we all kind of got our books out at the same time, so we were kind of supporting each other in the process. And she emailed me saying that she started reading and she was crying, and that in a way it connected with her with an experience that was completely different to what I write about in the book. And that was one of my concerns when I was writing it. Especially since I felt like it was too sad because I was writing it during the pandemic. And I would always think, well, are people going to connect? Are they going, is this too just like my experience and they're going to read it and think, well, it's just her. But it was really nice to see that it connected in a different memory for her. She understood it in a different way. And so, yeah, so those have been the nicest ones. And yeah, I think just the support has been really, really nice. And especially like sharing spoken word. I shared a spoken word on the femicides and one on mental health, and it did really well on Instagram, which I wasn't a big like fan of doing a lot of work on social media, but I can see the impact, and I've had people reach out and say thank you for speaking about this, and I think this is important, and yeah, that kind of feeds gives me a warm feeling. It's been really nice.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And I have to say, I want to give a word to Maya for being the cleanest cat in a poetry reading. She's just grooming and grooming like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like she's right behind you. Just
Yes, and she did. Earlier she had her feet up here. I was like, no, you can't. Like, no, this can't be recorded. Yeah, she's my baby. But
yeah, she wanted to be near you for sure.
I got her when I adopted her when I moved to the country. So we've been together as long as I've been here. My little companion.
Well, thank you so much for your words and for sharing. I know that Richard has something to read, and I want to ask if you want to do that now, Mr. Loringer.
I could, or I didn't know if we were going to break, or is anyone else reading? Usually, you had asked me yesterday, and I was exhausted, but I thought of one thing. Should we break, or should I just read this? Oh,
yeah, let's just read through. Yeah.
What the heck?
We don't have too much time left anyway, so yeah, let's go for it.
Oh yeah. I thought of this very early in the gathering when we were talking about a few things, but peak experiences. I think Jeffrey mentioned peak experience, but also, sort of being out. Tammy, you were talking about being out in certain spaces, and that's what made me think of this piece. So it's more aligned with those topics than with Natili's topics, but I think it goes with the idea of spaces. Okay, I'm going to shut up and read it. It takes 3 minutes to read, by the way. In fact, it might take 3 minutes exactly, because I wrote this poem originally on a sort of a self-dare. You know how so many reading series you go to have 3 minutes? That's your limit. 3 minutes, they say 3 minutes, and some of them will stop you. So I decided to write a poem that would take 3 minutes to the second to read. And it's about the experience of 3 minutes of time, and it's called 3 minutes. But it actually turned out really nicely. 3 minutes. I don't know if it'll be 3 minutes because I haven't read it in a long time. I stand on a broad, flat rock. 3 minutes of my life. Of what? 3 minutes. A few dozen breaths, if you're counting. Several dozen heartbeats. A few billion nerves firing. A small brown feather fluttering across a field. Slow drip of an old sink. My life, my what? 3 minutes waiting in a room. 3 minutes watching the tide come in on a stony beach, listening to each wave crash like a heartbeat, like a long, slow breath. 3 minutes of an engine running. 3 minutes of an exquisite cantata. I stand on a broad, flat rock, an outcropping, really 3 minutes. 3 minutes of nothing. Time, an invention of the mind, if you're counting, and probably not what it seems at all. 3 minutes thinking about that. 3 minutes of bone pain, of absolute grief that lasts a year. 3 minutes of orgasm, pleasure pulsing right out of your body, then slowly sinking back in. 3 minutes in the presence of a loved one. 3 minutes waiting in a room. I stand on a broad, flat rock, an outcropping high above a valley, late at night, well past midnight, full moon at my back, and glimmers of aurora borealis flickering across the north sky, flickering just these moments. A few dozen breaths. Moon behind in faint mist, hemmed by a ring of rainbow. This really happened. Milky Way hanging brilliantly in the west against darkest space. Silent. And the stars shift imperceptibly. I mean the earth, if you're counting. And the slightest hint of dawn comes in from the east and dims the spectacle. And that's it. It's over. 3 minutes.
Oh, it's a delicious 3 minutes. Oh my gosh. You just took 3 minutes of my life and I don't want it back. If everybody if everybody who demanded my time that way, I'd gladly send them minutes. Thank you.
I did see that night sky one time. It wasn't on an outcropping, but it was on a dock in New Hampshire. But there was a full moon with a rainbow around it to my back, and the aurora borealis, and the Milky Way in the west, and then the dawn's colors started to come up in the east. And for a few moments, like maybe 3 minutes, all of them were visible, and then they went away, and it was like magic time. Peak experience, right? That's where you know you're alive in the universe. Anyway.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad I thought of it.
I think I want to share a little bit about a poem that I need to write. I want very much to write it, but I haven't written it. So I'm just going to speak about it. And then I'll watch this video later, and maybe that'll help me shape the poem. We were talking about Sedona, Arizona earlier. And so when one of the things that happened during the pandemic last year is a lot of people were asking for prayers or asking for help or just wanting to share the type of pain and sorrow and anguish, their particular flavor of it that they were going through. That's how one way we were surviving was sharing these things, these impressions and experiences. So there was a family who live in Atlanta. They used to live in Dallas. The male of the family, he's a performance artist, and his name is Will Power, and he's a hip hop theater artist. And Will Power, for a moment, was based in Dallas. He was teaching at SMU as an artist in residence, and then he got a position in Atlanta and was teaching and performing and doing things there. And then it seemed like it was June or July, and they were moving from Atlanta to LA, and they were so excited to be going back to California, which is where they hail from, or at least Will Powers from there. But yet they're an African American family during the pandemic, during the height of people resisting masks, and different governors, like in Mississippi and Georgia, insisting we will be open, no mask requirements, no social distance. And so they were going to have to drive through some of those areas as a Black family. Also, the curfews were happening for various reasons, because of the Black Lives Matter parades, and also because some local leaders were saying we're imposing a curfew so that you don't go out to a bar and you don't stay out late interacting with each other during the COVID times. So Marla, who is the wife, she posted on Facebook, "We're about to leave for this drive and I'm scared. I'm so scared for our family because we're a Black family about to drive through the Deep South. And will you please have prayers for us? So put your energies out, send, light a candle, and we're going to be checking in." She said, "I'm going to be letting you know where we are, as we go. So, just keep, like, send out the angels to watch us." So I felt like I entered like a prayer chain with all the other Facebook friends who are just like, I felt like I was holding my hands over the car of that family as they were driving from the Deep South to the West Coast, little by little by little. And I was worried for them. I didn't want anything bad to happen to them. I didn't want them to get pulled over on the side of the highway. All the things that we read about, all the ways that Black people are interrogated and dishonored, like so many other, people of color, but particularly for Black folks in that time of last year. It was very challenging, and I would cry because I felt like, oh my gosh, on top, like, and they had 2 teenage children in the back seat, young, beautiful Black children, and they had to experience that too. And the parents trying to keep a sense of hope and optimism, and we're going to be home soon, but like keeping inside their hearts, like, oh my God, we're scared. I'm the head of household. I'm the father driving the car, and I'm scared. As many of us were scared of what would happen from day to day with the leadership that we had back then. And then they got to, they said, we're going to go through Arkansas, and this is going to be really hard. Please send out hope and optimism. And then they made it to Albuquerque, and they said, okay, we're in Albuquerque, yay, whoo, And then they're like, oh no, our hotel downtown is just 1 block from the Black Lives Matter rally, and we're very nervous because the police are showing up. And so they moved from their hotel. They left their hotel. They just got back on the road. They're like, we don't want to be anywhere near where there's pleito, any conflict or friction. And so it was really, I felt their stress, and I was there with them. I didn't want to not see that. Since I knew their story, I wanted to be involved. And then when they made it to Sedona, of all places, Sedona, Arizona, it's like, wow, we can breathe. We feel safe. We feel, she said, I feel your love. I feel your prayer. It's helped us. I really feel like we did make a difference just by knowing that they were going through that and keeping the hands of prayer over their car. And they made it to Sedona. I'm like, oh my God, that's like the new age capital of the US. And there's a lot of fake, I'm crystal guru, born again, shaman princess, and I make didgeridoos out of PVC pipe, all those, fake new age types, it's like, even those people give you a sense of comfort because they're kind of on the right side of things. And it was exciting, like for them to be excited to be there, and they could stretch their bones and really feel like they could take up space, and be themselves, as opposed to clutching in fear, which is not a way to live, And they're in LA, they made it, they got their gig, they got their home, and I'm happy. So I want to write that into a poem. I'm not sure how to do it. And just all those words I just use, it's, that's not a poem. But I want to write that someday.
Start with the transcript of what you just said.
I will, and I maybe I should write it in so it can be spoken in 3 minutes. That'll be the challenge. Maybe 3 minutes or less.
Does it have to be a poem? I mean, that's a beautiful narrative too. I mean, it doesn't have to have line breaks.
It doesn't have to. it has to honor the feeling. That's all. I don't,
Mhm.
you know, I don't want it to cheese out, be
Mhm.
cheesy or over sentimental. I felt like my telling was kind of sentimental. So, I'm hearing what needs to change in a way.
Say
Thank
it
you.
to
Thank you. Thank
jazz.
you.
Say the
Okay.
story. Say the story to some jazz.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that. Thank you, Eli.
I think such a powerful topic because many people don't experience that. And like I was thinking about my principal. Even one day that I kind of cried, and long story short, but because I wasn't feeling like safe, and no one was acknowledging what was happening, like in my school environment, for example, and I was afraid. It was, when everything was really really well, I think everything was just happening at the same time, and I would drive from my way from school to here, and if I would see, I don't know, I would just like feel scared to drive. And if I usually have like my music in Spanish or something, and I would bring it down if I had like someone like stop right next to me.
Oh
And
gosh.
those little things, it wasn't until I talked to other people that maybe they don't experience that because we think that that's how it is. So I think like listening to something like that for people that maybe have never experienced that, I think can be really eye opening.
I've been on the road when I had a car and I'd be traveling or even riding with my mom to go to Abilene to visit our familia over there. Every once in a while, I'd notice a black family, and I remember like mostly in my head, but then sometimes out loud I would say, "Oh wow, look, it's a black family on vacation." Like a black family is traveling, and it's such a rarity because black people are not seen that way, like and like when I was living in Aspen, Colorado. I lived on Buttermilk Mountain. There were very, 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 very few black people who went skiing in Colorado, and I'm laughing because it's audacious, in a way to like to know that there's such compartmentalization, like that's just kind of a winter sport, but then it becomes a whole social phenomenon. And then there are like raza, like Chicanos and skiing, like does that mix at all? Like it's not our onda. And so when our church youth group would go, Catholic Church youth group would say, okay, we're going to ski in Angel Fire, Nueva Mexico, or somewhere up there. I never went. It's like because it's not my culture. I don't know how to ski. We don't have the money. I have no outfits. I don't know what to wear. And so it was like, okay, that's an American pastime that's not for me. It's not my thing. And yet it's okay. I don't need to own it. I don't want to be a pretender either. I don't want to pretend. Either I'm going to do it right or I'm not doing it at all. Um, so it's interesting how we accept that there are certain people in our country that just don't do that thing. I went to a Vietnamese restaurant after I got my second vaccination, and we are going through a neighborhood, East Fort Worth, where there's a lot. It's like the Asian community, all the restaurants, Thai, Vietnamese. And I said, "Oh, my mom, I'm hungry. Do you mind if we stop here?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, wherever you want to go." I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have Vietnamese food. I haven't had it in a year." And when I was in there and I ordered 2 platters to go, one for me and one for my mom, there was a Mexicano who walked in with 3 daughters, and they sat in a booth, and the girls all familiar. They got the menus out. I'm like, oh my God, other Mexicanos eating Vietnamese food. Like, oh my God, that was exciting to me. Not that it's like that means we don't like our food as much. No, it means they're growing up as multicultural hybrid cultural creatures, and I don't say creature in a negative way, but like we get to do that. We get to do this and this, not this, but or this, not. It's like this and this and this, and those little girls will have familiarity. Like they'll know what a Thai iced tea tastes like, and vermicelli, which I love the way they cook it. And my mom loved the plate. She'd never had Vietnamese before. She said, "I don't even want to wait till I get home. Can we pull over?" We did in a grocery store parking lot. She said, "Did they give you a fork?" I said, "Mom, here's your fork." And we just ate it. It was like that was such joy for me because it's like we too can enjoy these things. Those boundary lines, those, let's blur them because there's so much to enjoy. And why not?
I loved that monologue.
I love that. It wasn't like a. It wasn't. I can tell you feel like you can tell it wasn't like a Chicanx male with his three daughters. This was a Mexicano who maybe he works there, but he's grown to like the food, and then the whole family loves the food, or maybe I don't know. But my parents were that way too. We were going to Polish dances and because it's like Mexican polka, Polish music. And my parents we were not absolutists, thank goodness. So it's made me unafraid to try things because I'm here to live and live everything, do everything once or twice. ¿Qué más quiere hablar? Lorena, Jeffrey, you got something?
We have a dog. Our baby. Our daughter. The daughter we never had.
What's that?
She's like, our dog is the daughter we never had. She's like our baby right now.
Oh, is she there? I don't see her. She's down below.
She's right here.
Oh, yeah. What a beauty.
Oh, what's her name?
Mamba.
Ah,
Mambita.
You know what? The other day I was calling the dogs out, and I was like, "Hey, Mamba!" And one of my neighbors came over, and she goes, "Hey, did you know that Mamba means alligator in Swahili?" I go, "No, I didn't." Yeah. We're calling her alligator Swahili.
Nice. See, we're speaking all these different languages. We had no idea. I love that. So you live near an African person. Yeah. Mamba.
Yeah.
It's like I know I've told this before. When I was in Nepal, I didn't know too much Nepali, but I learned the word for cat. And you'll be interested in this, Nash, is the word for cat in Nepali is biralo, like 3 syllables, biralo. And so I made like a little joke when I was walking around because I'm Tex-Mex, and I would go, I see a cat, I go, miralo, biralo. I'm like, oh, it's so cute and funny. And nobody else in the whole country would understand it because they don't speak Spanish or understand, So I'm like, miralo, biralo. And that's the kind of cultural fusion and cultural mishmash that I love so much because it means we're more aligned than like people would have us believe. Like people like I want to say like public school educators who are just kind of genericans, they wouldn't enjoy the beauty of that, like being multilingual and creating puns in multiple languages. It's a rich place to be in those margins or those edges.
and I think that's a great way also to I feel like I do that a lot with my students to get them to be bilingual. I have 50% of them are Spanish speakers, and the 50% are what we call opt-ins. So I have that speak English, Hindi, and I had last year Kashmir, and I do a lot of that. We call it translanguaging, and I'm always trying to teach them like the similarities, and we have those cognates, those words that are the same, but like kids are so amazed by it. They're like, oh, this is the same word and this and at the beginning I'm like, yeah, our languages are actually very we come, and of course I tell them about Romance languages, and I think it excites them about learning the language, especially the kids who are Spanish speakers. And I know with history and everything, it's been when they go to school, Spanish is not that appreciated, and they're just trying to move them to the English. So I try to do that to get them excited to know that Spanish is fun and it's interesting, and learning other languages, like the more you learn, the more you find those connections.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a friend from Arizona, Ann Kilpatrick, who's actually a congressperson from um, Arizona, and her parents ran a trading post on an Apache reservation, and so she grew up learning Apache. And as a congressperson, she went on a trip to China, and she found that she could talk to the Mandarin Chinese people because Apache and Mandarin Chinese were close enough that they could understand each other. Just
I love that story. That's beautiful. I look up a lot. I don't really know that I don't speak fluently. I know a little Spanish and a little German, and I can understand a little bit of a couple other things, but I don't speak fluently. But I spend a lot of time with a lot of different unusual languages because of my job, which is writing names for things. And a lot of times people want to, like, I just spent a whole week looking up words in as many languages as possible to see what they would look and sound like. And but what I really wanted to say was, Tammy, you said something about being multi. I don't. I wonder if this just comes from my experience, but I kind of don't think so. You know, I know why you said multilingual, multicultural. Like when you're talking about the restaurant, especially how that's, you know, sort of on the edge. And I keep thinking, I automatically think. In fact, before you even said that, I was thinking of that as being at the center, not at the edge. You know, it's where things intersect, despite the other word that has intersect in it. It's, you know, it's you know, it's, to me, it's in the center.
I did feel like rescinding that right after I heard myself saying that. So I'm agreeing with you.
Yes.
I mean, other folks would think we're marginalia and we're marginal, but we're really very much in the center of our lives, of course. And like being in the melting pot. Like I tell youth when I get to speak to them, you know, they say America is a melting pot, but so many people refuse to come in and swim together, you know, in the stew. It's really great. It's great flavors. And, I say too many people are just sitting on the rim, like people who never swim in the pool. They're just sitting on the edge, dangling their little toes in. You know, they're afraid of what might happen if they actually get in to the soup with everybody else. And I say, come on in. The water is fine. The mix-up, the Mandarin Chinese and the Miralo Birolo and the Mambo Swahili and Apache Mandarin. It's like, this is rich stuff. I love it. Why don't you want to swim here?
I remember being in class and I was telling one of the students who spoke Spanish, I go, hey, my mom's a Chicana. She doesn't really speak that good Spanish, but she tries. In fact, she used to tell me to throw my clothes in the mugre. And later I found out that mugre meant dirt, but she should have been saying, put your clothes in the ropa sucia. But I never knew that until, like, I don't know, 42. That's what happens when you grow up not knowing Spanish properly.
That's amazing. So Eli is also an educator. So, it's a great mix of folks. Thank you so much, everyone who shared. I mean, we've all shared. It's been so rich. I've enjoyed, 2 hours just kind of swam past us, and it's just amazing. And I've learned a lot. And Deshali, your work is very rich, and I applaud you for your great efforts in being an educator and an artist. And I wish, the superhero that was wanting, like, don't call me that, but yeah. I mean, we shouldn't put too much on your shoulders. That's not fair. I agree.
Congratulations for the book. Yeah, that's a big deal, I think.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the space. This was great, and the conversations were great. It's always nice to be in a space, even if it's a virtual space, with people that you can feel safe sharing.
It tries to be that way every month, and we'll go back in June to our regular time slot, which is the third Saturday of the month. And maybe another time I'll tell you about what took me away last Saturday. Basically, it was an art exhibit in Dallas, and that was really eye-opening and a good experience for me to try something different. I exercised different muscles, literally. And yeah, and I don't know the theme for next month, but yeah, stay tuned. And we've been documenting. I'm about to stop the recording session, and I'll let you know when I can share the link with you for when it's on YouTube. And I think it'll be a really great document, especially Alejandra, because you got to really interact with us about your work in a way that went beyond just reading the work. And I think that was valuable for me, especially to hear you talk about the underpinnings of your work and the context of the pieces.
One word, Tammy, the switching to Zoom this time may have cut into some of your regular people who aren't Zoom people, but are just Facebook people. So you might prepare people a little ahead of time on that.
Was it not on Zoom before, Tammy? I don't remember.
It was on the Facebook. It wasn't Zoom.
I just don't remember.
No, we've been in Zoom. We've been in Zoom every month.
Have we? Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
No, that's it raises the point that's about, people pivoting to doing things in real life, and whether or not folks are going to continue to find value in joining virtual sessions like this in the months to come. I plan to be here because I don't like to get out in the summer because it's too hot. And plus, I get to include people from all around the country, and folks I cannot drive to meet up with in real life. So this is a way to have them introduced to like a Dallas poet, who you might not have had a chance to meet otherwise. The virtual provides great opportunity.
I love coming to Texas every month, and and I should put the Facebook invite out around here for more people to come. I'm going to try to remember to get it from you as early as possible.
Thank you.
And I know a lot of Latinx writers around here. So, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, promotion helps, and also suggestions for future features. I always like to feature somebody who's recently released a book, a chapbook, or any other publication of poetry, primarily. Well, I need to stop recording, and I have just done that.